What a game. The games this weekend, my God. You know, this has been introduced with like a Steph Curry, throw it incomplete to Devontae Adams. Wow. I mean, that's all I can say is wow. What is going on, guys? Back for the Love of Sports podcast, and today we're here with Erik. What's going on?
Hey Ryan, happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
Not a problem. And today, guys, we're going to be reacting to the NBA Allstar selections. And we've seen a lot of controversy over the selections over the last few days. And to be honest with you, I don't think there's many wrong picks in this. You know, a couple guys here and there. I think Sabonis could have been an addition definitely to the Eastern Conference All-Stars. I think he's been terrific this year for Indiana. I thought that originally Devin Booker was, consistent, for the majority of the year. I thought that he could have made it. He did make it today because he filled in for the injured Anthony Davis. A little surprising because Chris Paul he's still pretty good in the Suns. He's not having the same exact season that Booker is. Booker's averaging around 24 points, 4 assists, 4 rebounds, which is really good. And they're actually fourth right now in the Western Conference, the Phoenix Suns. They've been terrific. Erik, what is your reaction to these picks? And we can kind of break it down one by one.
Okay, well, where do you want to start? Do you want to start with the reserves?
Yeah, let's start with the reserves because that's what we went over. So going over the Western Conference reserves, they got Damian Lillard for the Portland Trail Blazers, terrific player. Donovan Mitchell for the league-leading Utah Jazz, also playing terrific. Also, Rudy Gobert, center, Utah Jazz. That's a little surprising. He's been great, but, people have their opinions on that one. We got Paul George for the Los Angeles Clippers, who's, since he's been on the court and back from his injury, been terrific. Missed those 7 games earlier in the year.
Showing us signs of playoff P in the regular season.
Yep. Chris Paul, Phoenix Suns. Zion Williamson, the 4th youngest player ever to be in an All-Star game. What do you think about that one?
I honestly am so impressed with Zion this year. He's averaging 25 a game on 61.5% shooting. Like, it's just like unfathomable when you think about it. Like, those are Shaquille O'Neal in his prime type of field goal percentages when he was backing people down and just absolutely demolishing everyone. Like, Zion is a freight train, and I'm excited to see him going up against the best talent in the league in the All-Star game.
Yeah, absolutely. And to round it off, now Devin Booker, as we mentioned earlier, filling in for Anthony Davis. D-Book, man, I think he's, LeBron James tweeted, one of the most underrated players in the league year in and year out. And I got to be honest, like, the team sucked prior to this year, but finally he has help, and now look at them. They are 4th in the very difficult Western Conference, and he's playing terrific. It's surprising, though, there's 2 guys picked from the Phoenix Suns, 2 guys picked from the Utah Jazz in those reserves. And there was a lot of other guys who are having great seasons for the Western Conference that maybe could have slid into that final spot. It's so difficult, man. There's so many different guys.
Yeah, it really is tough because we always talk about the snubs, and then it's like, yeah, they should have been an All-Star, but who do you take out of there? Like, some of these guys are having outstanding years. The only one I could maybe, if we're not even talking about Anthony Davis because he got injured, if it wasn't injured, he would have obviously still been on there. But maybe you slide Rudy Gobert out. I know he's having a great season too, but I don't know. I still think Book deserved it over him.
Yeah, I think Gobert is he just solidifies their interior defense so good, and he's averaging a career high almost 3 blocks a game. He's just like a meteor in the middle of the paint, and he really contributes to that team. I think he's a very big reason why they have the best team in the league right now. But Mitchell is.
I know that's why it's so tough to choose. Like, who do you take out of there? Maybe I don't even know.
Yeah, there was kind of a weird thing. I don't think that he should have made it, but in the Eastern Conference at least, so many guys, Bam Adebayo, Sabonis, Trae Young. That's what I'm saying. There's so many guys, it's almost impossible to pick. Let's go over quickly the Eastern Conference reserves. We got Jaylen Brown, Boston Celtics. What a terrific year. He's having 25.5 points per game, shooting 50% from the field, 41% from downtown, averaging 4 assists, which is also a career high for him. What a season he's having. We got James Harden, who seems to be the best player on that team right now, leading them without Kevin Durant, averaging 25, 8, and 11, league leading in assists in his first season with Brooklyn. He's averaged literally his true percentage right now shooting with Brooklyn is 66.5%, which is technically the best in the league.
Wow.
After that, we got Jason Tatum, another terrific year, almost 24 years old, having one of the best seasons. He's going to be scary, man, for years to come. I think that he's one of those guys that could easily be an MVP consideration in a couple years.
I agree. I
Yeah.
agree.
On to Zach Levine, who's making his first All-Star game, which is very deservingly so. I know the Bulls are a horrible
Congrats.
team, averaging 29 points, 5 assists, and 5 rebounds. And, he's literally that entire team. I mean, how bad would that team be without him? It's just, I think that he's well-deserved.
Yeah, what's interesting though is, like you said, the team is putrid, but that was a lot of the main reason why Bradley Beal for many years was getting snubbed because they're like, oh, the team is awful. But they seem to ignore that when putting in Zach Levine because he has Bradley Beal type numbers, but the record is poor for the team.
Yeah, I think that you need to factor in like the position and the team they're on because like how do you not put a guy in that's averaging almost 30 points a game, 5 assists, 5 rebounds? I don't
Yeah,
care what team he's on, that's still impressive. And people's opinions differ on that. I just think that, you know, regardless of what team it is, you're still playing, on the same competitive scale. And for you to have
yeah,
almost 30 points a game, a lot of people always say that he's having these ridiculous stats because he's like constantly holding the ball and they are on bad teams. Someone's going to score. But then again, you have to factor him. If you were to move Zach Levine to a winning team, I think he would have very similar numbers, if not better. You know?
no, I totally agree. I always thought it was kind of silly to base an All-Star game nods and put so much emphasis on the team's record. That's something that you typically look at when you're determining an MVP. An All-Star game has to be like the best performers. And like you said, just to kind of reiterate that, if you're averaging almost 29 points a game on a 64.8% true shooting percentage, like even if you have the ball in your hands like constantly, that's still impressive no matter what.
Yeah, absolutely. And on to the Knicks, Julius Randle, who's having a ridiculous season. At one point, he was almost averaging a triple double. And the Knicks seem reborn under Tom Thibodeau, at least for what I think. I think they've played terrific. They're one game beyond the Celtics. They're in the seventh seed right now, 15-16 on the year. I think they're doing a terrific job of rebuilding that team.
Yeah, I think Thibodeau was exactly what they needed over there. The guys, obviously got a great track record. And I really think that he's helped that team, and especially you guys like Julius Randle, really come into their own. And I mean, this is kind of backtrack for a second here. Think about like some of these players that are now having breakout seasons. You got to give it up to the Lakers from several years ago. The Lakers drafted Julius Randle, D'Angelo Russell, Brandon Ingram, all these guys having outstanding years.
Lonzo Ball, too, is having a
Um,
pretty good year.
Lonzo Ball, like it's great to see these guys develop.
I always think that, that is true. That's a very good point you just made. Imagine if they would have kept these guys. So let's just say if they were, I know it's difficult to say because they probably wouldn't have became the same players they are today because just the situation, especially if LeBron was there. But can you imagine, Brandon Ingram, Julius Randle, LeBron James, like that team would still be very good
Yeah,
even with no Anthony Davis.
I know it's really interesting. Who knows what would have happened?
Don't you think this is just like a clear indication on like teams giving up on guys way too soon? Like these guys were like 2 years into the league. It takes years for certain guys to actually improve. Same
Yeah,
thing with Jalen Brown. His first couple years didn't look great. Now he's looking like at least to me one of the best two-way players in the game. He's similar to the Kawhi Leonard. He's like a lockdown defender and a great scorer now.
yeah, he's so much more physically mature as well too. He's really um, turned into quite an athletic specimen, and he's so long. I think that he's going to be a staple in these All-Star games for years to come.
Yeah, I think so too. And we'll round out the last two guys in the reserves. So the Eastern Conference, we got Ben Simmons of the 76ers. This one is a little difficult for me because Simmons is one of those players that definitely is one of the best defenders in the league. He's averaging I think 15 points this year, which I think believe is down from the last two seasons. But he's a big reason why Philadelphia is good. He's a leader on that offense. Clearly, he's the guy that has the ball in his hands that creates that offense for Joel Embiid, who's having an MVP caliber season. What do you think about Simmons, Eric? Do you think he's fit to be in the All-Star game this year?
Yeah, that's another one here where I think if he was in the Western Conference, he wouldn't have made it because it seems like the reserves in the West are a little bit deeper this year. The thing that is like a testament to Simmons though is his defensive ability. He's, in my opinion, one of the best defensive players in the league, surely the East. And the thing is, though, the points are down, but the team's doing really well. But a lot of that you can attribute to Joel Embiid also. So I wouldn't have really been disappointed if maybe Simmons was switched out with a Sabonis or
Trey Young.
a Bam or a Trey Young. That wouldn't have bothered me at all.
Yeah. What do you think about this last one, Nikola Vucevic? To me, honestly, I think Vucevic has been one of the best big guys in the league. Terrific center. He's averaging 24, 11 and a half, and 4 assists. Literally the only
It's
reason why the
disturbing,
Magic are
yeah.
even considered to be decent at all. I think Vucevic is legit, man. He's like quietly one of the best players in the league.
It's crazy how well this guy plays and like doesn't get noticed. Like the casual fan really doesn't know like the scope of like Nikola Vucevic, and not only has he been so consistent over the past several years, but he's gotten better. And he's in his 10th season in the league and he's still getting better. He's shooting 40% from 3-point range on 6 attempts per game. So think about that. He's a center, and I know bigs are shooting a lot more, but a 6'11 center who has primarily playing in like the post area to now add that to his game. I mean, he's unreal.
Yeah, that's literally insane. And that rounds out the reserves. So going on to the starters quickly. Eastern Conference is Giannis Antetokounmpo, Bradley Beal, Kevin Durant, Joel Embiid, Kyrie Irving. For the Western Conference, Stephen Curry, LeBron James, Nikola Jokic, Kawhi Leonard, and Luka. And the biggest controversies seem to be around who should start, Luka Doncic or Damian Lillard. Lillard is having the better season as far as a team aspect. They do have the better record. They've been terrific, the Blazers, and it's surprising because they've had no McCollum or Nurkic for half the season because both went down with a broken wrist and a broken foot. It's so hard to pick out of those two guys. I'm a huge fan of Lillard and Luka. It's just who do you put in? I think Luka is one of the biggest reasons why Dallas is even considered at all. I think Lillard's team around him is still a little bit better, even with McCollum and Nurkic not being in there. What do you think? Who do you think should have been starting, Eric?
It's such a tough call. I probably, well, technically they tied for the starting spot, and then the determining factor was the fan vote. And I could see why people voted Luca, even though I mean people love Dame as well. But Luca's a little bit younger, a little bit newer to the league. He's pretty exciting. He's flashy, so I could see why he won the fan vote. But if we're going on how you're performing this season only, like beginning of the season to right now, I probably would give the edge to Lillard, but it's just so close.
Yeah, it's literally one of those things like 1A, 1B. Like they're both
Yeah,
literally considered to be one of the best players in the league, especially at the guard position. They just do so much for their teams, and it's like unaccounted. Like I think without them on the same teams, like I think the Mavericks would just be a lot worse. That's what I think. And I
yeah,
always look at that like how good a team would be without a player, and that gives you kind of a like clear understanding of how bad the actual team is. I think if you were to
right.
take away like Giannis from the Bucks or Luca from the Mavericks, I think those teams would just be like horrendous.
No, I agree 100%. They are the backbone of their teams, and they're both, in a sense, faces not only their franchises but the league. They're two of the most visible players in the game today.
Absolutely. I mean, what do you think about Steph Curry and a couple guys that didn't even contribute last year at all? Steph Curry was out with a broken hand all season. Kevin Durant finally back, having a terrific season coming back from that Achilles. It's good to see these good faces back in the All Star game, huh?
Yeah, I think it's awesome to see Steph bounce back like this, because um, we were so used to Steph dominating. I mean, this is his seventh All-Star selection in the past 8 seasons, And last year was kind of weird, um, not seeing Curry out on the floor and not seeing the Warriors the way we had grown accustomed to seeing the Warriors. And it's really awesome to see him perform at this level and be an all-star again. And I'm excited to see that. The other thing that I wanted to point out that I thought was really interesting was I was actually surprised. I didn't realize that Kyrie had so many All-Star selections. This is actually his seventh, and he's been voted now to the All-Star game with three different franchises, along with his teammate Kevin Durant, who has also now accomplished that feat. I think if you get be an All-Star with three different teams, that's pretty neat.
Oh, absolutely. And, looking at it now, I actually think Harden should be in there ahead of Irving just because we've seen him, what he's done on Brooklyn. He's the better player out of the two, and he's literally averaging more points almost. The only thing that's all he's doing is Irving is 2 more points per game. But, it looks like Harden, which originally was intended to be the shooting guard, is now clearly the point guard on that team. And I think that's where
Yeah.
Irving got in, is the point guard position, which he's really not anymore. So that's a little
Right,
interesting.
right, right.
It's just,
Yeah, no, that's true. I think maybe what hurt Harden was the kind of beginning of the year and the little antics that were going on. But you can make the same argument for Kyrie when he was doing God knows what for however many days without informing his coach or the franchise. So it's kind of a toss up with them, but I agree with you. Harden probably deserved to start over Kyrie, but it's hard to discount his accomplishments and his stats this season as well. It's just so close.
Yeah, absolutely. And that kind of solidifies, a stacked Eastern and Western Conference. Those teams are going to be very competitive. I think that it's great that they are going to have the All Star game. I know there was a lot of debate on if they should actually have it. I just think that it's good for the sport. I think that if they did do it, get everyone healthy and obviously do it in a safe manner, I think that it's great for the league. And like I said, the All Star game the last few years have actually been more competitive than they used to be because years in like the early 2000s, they were awesome, and then it kind of slid off with like 2010 up.
Oh
Like the All
yeah,
Star
it
game was just
was
like a track
painful to
meet.
watch.
Terrible.
Oh, I hated it. I hated what it had turned into. You couldn't have put it any better. It was a track meet, which is guys throwing lobs, throwing wide open ducks. Like, didn't Anthony Davis have like 50 points one game and like 48 of them were just like
It's
wide
so
open dunks
bad, so
that were
bad.
like cherry picks? Like, it just like ruined the integrity of the game and it just inflated stats so much. It was not fun for me. I love the competitiveness. You have the top guys in the league going against each other, and we saw that last year. You remember how it was like almost impossible for both teams to score the winning basket
Oh
because
my
of the
god, it
level
was
of defense that
awesome.
was being played.
Oh my god, that was literally the best. That fourth quarter in that All Star game, I swear to God, was like Game 7 of the NBA Finals. It was literally like everyone trying as hard as they can to win, and
Yeah,
that was the best thing they did was doing that Elam ending. It's like they have a certain amount of points they have to reach. That's so much better than just allowing them to like run up the score because it gets to a point that it's like you could be winning by like 40, going to the fourth quarter. It's not even like competitive
right.
at that point. So I think the way they switched it to having the actual point total getting to that number is way, way better. Much more, exciting, at least for me. And it looks like the guys actually give a shit about playing.
Yeah, no, I that's what I think is cool. One other guy I wanted to bring up that I think probably could have been an interesting guy to see in this game because of the meteoric rise, like absolutely out of nowhere. I wouldn't have minded seeing Christian Wood in the All Star as an All Star reserve. What do you think?
Oh yeah, Christian Wood, terrific, terrific season. I think the only reason he didn't is because he's been out with an ankle injury only for like a week. But I just think that
Yeah,
I think he's still one of those guys that are a little under the radar just because he's finally having that first big season now. But I think out
right.
of all of them, if I were to pick the biggest snub, I think it has to be Sabonis because the Pacers are having a great season. He's averaging literally like 23 points, 12 and a half rebounds, 6.5 assists, and he's 6'11". And he's literally the reason why they're even competitive, in my opinion. They do
Yeah,
have a couple other guys, Brogdon, but I think Sabonis is clearly one of the best bigs in the league, and I think that it's stupid of him not to make it. I think if you were to take out anyone, I probably would pick Ben Simmons, but again, like you mentioned before, his defensive intensity, his two-way play is just like one of the best in the league, and it's even harder to remove him.
yeah, yeah. I know that would have. It's. it's so hard to pick who you would take off, but I think if anyone on the East to take off, it would be Simmons.
Yeah, absolutely. And I appreciate you coming on, Eric.
Yeah, of course. I always enjoy the conversation, and I hope we can do this again soon, and maybe we'll have a recap of the All-Star game. It'd be fun to talk about that. I'm gonna leave you with one thing though. Who's your MVP pick?
MVP pick, tough. I think I'm gonna go with Kevin Durant. I don't know why. I just feel like it's his season. I just think that everything with, he's been out with COVID a couple times, or just the protocols and him coming back from that Achilles, having such a great season. I just think that it's just like gonna be magical. I think it's gonna be one of those seasons for Durant where I think they're gonna win the NBA Finals, and I think that it's gonna be one of the biggest comeback stories ever.
Okay.
What about
I
you? Who do you think?
am, well, I'm thinking for the All-Star game, it's going to be close. It's going to be tough, but I'm actually going to go with the reserve as the MVP because, I mean, there's a lot of guys that you can make the argument on this list that have really something to prove. Um, I think Lillard is going to be the All-Star game MVP, being selected as a reserve because I think he's going to be a little salty. He didn't get that starting spot.
Oh, I could definitely see that happening. That's a very good possibility. Honestly, it comes down to who's going to be playing the most. I think that
Yeah.
depending on like game speed, I think Lillard's probably going to be out there in the fourth quarter over most of their bigs, in my opinion. So that's a great pick. Durant for me, Lillard for you. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, man, it's gonna be fun.
Awesome. All right, guys. Thanks for tuning in for the Love of Sports podcast. Like, comment, subscribe.